China is building a new world order with a school for dictators. Yes, China is actively making the world a worse place. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell, and now I know many of you wonder, how do I find the energy to keep up my anti-communist fervor? The answer is lots of coffee. Specifically Days Coffee, the sponsor of today's episode. It's not just any coffee. It is something no other coffee in America has, which I'll explain in a bit. Now, you might call the Chinese Communist Party a genocidal authoritarian regime. They would call it a socialist democracy, which is the best kind of democracy. As long as you don't know what the definition of democracy is. It even calls itself the People's Democratic Dictatorship. Now I know what you're thinking. What makes China's democracy the best? Well, according to Xi Jinping, it's the unity of party leadership, the people running the country, and law-based governance. In case you're not versed in CCP speak, unity of party leadership means having only one political party where all cadres fall in line behind the guy at the top, which just so happens to be Xi. Fancy that. But since China's democracy is the best, the CCP wants to share it with the rest of the world. How generous. Recently, China has been exporting its dictatorship model by opening a school for wannabe dictators in Africa. Because Africa didn't already have enough problems. The school was built in Tanzania with a $40 million grant from the Chinese Communist Party's Central Party School, which trains China's political elite. The co-founder of the school are all leading African political parties from various African countries. And wouldn't you know it, these parties have all been in power continuously for several decades. And since YouTube freaks out if I question election results, I can only say these parties must have won their elections fair and square. I mean, granted, in Tanzania, the last president banned the opposition parties from holding rallies for 6 years, and in Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe won re-election in 2008 after his party may have killed over 200 people. His opposition at the time withdrew because of the violence. But that's democratic dictatorship for you. So what is China teaching in this school for dictators? How to make authoritarian governments more authoritarian? Like an authoritarian finishing school? I'll get to that in a moment, but first, let's take a quick coffee break. Oh, what kind of coffee am I drinking? Why, of course, it's Days Coffee. And I'll tell you why I love this particular brand of coffee so much. For one, it has very low acidity compared to most coffees. That makes it taste a lot better. It's not bitter like most coffees, and it's gentle on my tummy. The reason it's so good is that it mimics the world's most expensive coffee, the kind from civet cats, which, if you don't know how that works, don't look it up. Days Coffee tastes just as good and has a similar profile, but it's 100% cat-free. The beans are treated with 50 enzymes and fermented. It's a patented process developed by a former cancer researcher at Yale University. So believe me, it's very, very good. And for a fraction of the civet cat price. That doesn't mean it's the cheapest coffee though. Days uses only grade 1 beans, the highest grade possible. You won't find that at most places. So get your Days Coffee using the link below. At checkout, use the code China Uncensored for a 20% discount. And once you order, they'll roast it right before they ship it to you. So it's just about as fresh as you can get by mail. So click below to try it out. Ooh. So why is China setting up this school? Well, here's Chinese state media with the answer.
Aims to nurture young future leaders to steer the continent towards its second liberation.
Right, because if anyone's an expert on liberation, it's China. So what are they teaching at this school? Some of the topics are why socialism with Chinese characteristics is good, party discipline, Xi Jinping thought, poverty alleviation, and anti-corruption methods. You know, after investigating millions of party members over the past 10 years, China does have quite a bit of experience with anti-corruption methods. Sometimes those double as anti-opposition methods, but you know, same skill set. According to an Axios investigation of the school, Chinese teachers sent from Beijing train African leaders that the ruling party should sit above the government and the courts, and that fierce discipline within the party can ensure adherence to party ideology. There's that unity of party leadership I talked about earlier. Under the CCP, you're either unified or you're purged. But that is the Chinese model. The Chinese Communist Party is the ultimate authority, and the government just plays a backup role, as do things like due process, human rights, judicial independence, and a bunch of other things you need for a real democracy. The principal of the school told Chinese state media that China's economic rise is tied to its strong leadership, which is one of state media's talking points. Because China totally has strong leadership, as evidenced by its feeling the need to lock up over 1 million people for their looks and deny it's happening. As for the school teaching Xi Jinping thought and socialism with Chinese characteristics, let's just say Xi Jinping is breaking a little promise he made. That promise was to not export China's political system to other countries. But it's like I've said before, the Communist Party has never made a promise it's not willing to break. But this is why some are worried that this school could weaken African democracies, which are already more fragile than an anemic slug in salt water. You see, the school's not open to just anyone. Opposition parties so far haven't been invited to attend, which isn't fair. I believe in equality. No matter someone's race, sex, gender, political, or religious beliefs, I believe we all deserve an equal opportunity to become dictators. According to one China expert, this shows that the school is really about nurturing authoritarianism. This could absolutely be the case. Xi has talked about wanting to strengthen solidarity and cooperation with Africa. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're dealing with a stable dictatorship. So why is China so interested in Africa? I'll tell you more after this final commercial break. Welcome back. Now you may be wondering why we're focusing so much on this one school, especially when China has Confucius Institutes all over the world promoting their soft power in roughly the same way. But there are a few differences, namely that this school is directly targeting leaders, specifically young leaders in these countries. And secondly, it's very directly teaching them how to implement China's brand of authoritarianism. And let me tell you, you do not want to owe money to this school. I thought my student loan officers were brutal. Inside China, it's not hard to find schools that teach Xi Jinping thought and other party doctrine. Renmin University, for example, even has an academy devoted to it. But outside China, the party wasn't really building schools like this until a few years ago. Last year, a training academy for diplomats opened in Tunisia, which was financed and built by the Chinese government. According to Chinese state media, Tunisia is planning to carry out academic exchanges and training cooperation with China, which means China could be involved in training Tunisian diplomats. China did the same thing with Sierra Leone's Foreign Service Academy. It was built by a Chinese company and funded by the Chinese government. We couldn't find anything in black and white saying China is still involved with the school after it opened, but the Chinese state media talk about the two countries cooperating on education infrastructure and defense a lot, so it wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, I'm not surprised when China is involved in anything. If you told me China's behind my cousin's sleep apnea, I'd just say I should have known. It's all those Chinese-made pillows. But whether China's still involved or not, this is just one of the ways that China is trying to reshape Africa to be China's little sidekick. This isn't a new goal. China's political influence in Africa goes back to at least the 1950s, when Mao Zedong sent people there to do military and ideological training. He also supported the liberation movements led by many of the current African governments, many of which are influenced by communism. When the Communist Party was recognized as the leader of China by the UN in 1971, Mao credited the victory on what he called his African brothers, which is a phrase that's somehow more problematic than it sounds when you have the full context. China's biggest presence on the continent, though, is by far its infrastructure projects. China has Belt and Road projects in most African countries. And for over a decade now, China has been Africa's single largest trading partner. For those who don't know, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI as it's known, is China's infrastructure and development initiative. And it's going swimmingly. By that I mean the infrastructure is crumbling and people are swimming in all the leaking water. China signs agreements with countries all over the world to build their infrastructure, often with state-backed loans, and in return, they get a new market for their products and workers and a certain amount of influence within the country. How much influence? Well, that's hard to measure, but BRI countries on the UN Human Rights Council certainly helped China quash debate on its Uyghur genocide. We only found one country that was part of the Belt and Road Initiative that voted against China on that. Yes, the Human Rights Council is actively ignoring a genocide. To be fair, I see why it's hard for them to see what's going on. According to state media, China's Belt and Road Initiative is a soft power strategy designed to demonstrate that it is a viable alternative to other states and institutions. Now, whether it will prevail remains to be seen. The Chinese Communist Party is facing some stiff headwinds at home right now, with protests over how the CCP handled the recent flooding and over the debt and housing crises. It's almost like people don't like living under incompetent authoritarians. Am I out of touch? No, it's the citizens who are wrong. As a result, China had to scale back its Belt and Road investments in Africa because of the financial turmoil. But that doesn't mean it's going to stop working on turning Africa's democracies into dictatorships, or anywhere else for that matter. After all, they're the most effective kind of democracy. They're also bringing China's special brand of police brutality to Africa, which you can learn more about in this video. And as always, hit that orange button to support China Uncensored on Patreon. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.